Hey guys, hope you're well. Welcome back, and I'm just going to do another video today for you guys on: do you need a refeed slash cheat meal, refeed day, okay, whatever we're going to call it. So what I want to talk about first is something that we see a lot, or I see a lot, okay, in the industry. So people start a diet and the first thing they say is, when do I get a cheat meal? When do I get a refeed day? When do I get a refeed? Okay, and I've even had clients come to me from other coaches, as bad as this is. They'll do a diet for say 6 days, and then the coach will go, on your 7th day you get a cheat day. And you might be a coach watching this to try and learn some tips, or you might be someone watching me to obviously get some tips to help you with your own goal. Okay, now this sort of way of eating and stuff is not cool. Now, to start with, if you've been dieting for literally like 6 days, if you've been eating in a calorie deficit for 6 days, and then on the 7th day you go and have a massive cheat day, you need to change your priorities, okay? Because a lot of the time, if you're looking to diet down, in 7 days or 6 days, on the 7th day, you will not need a refeed or a cheat meal or whatever, and that's something I'm going to go into later, okay? So when we are looking at it, the reason we need to look at it that way is because if someone's come to me and they've basically wanting to lose fat, if they're wanting to lose fat, lose weight, they're carrying excess body fat, a lot of the time what's got them to that point is their behaviors and their psychological side of things is they're not good at restricting the foods they love. So if a coach then after 6 days goes and says, on the 7th day you can eat whatever you want and we'll get back on the diet tomorrow on Monday, that client's going to go, wow, this is great, and they'll go and eat every single thing possible because they know that they've then got to restrict that for 6 days, and inevitably that's going to end up with them most likely not losing fat, or potentially a lot of the time they might even end up putting it on, because that day, that one day, you've got to make count, and they just go hard. They literally go balls deep on it, okay? So it's not a good process. So what should we be doing? Let's have a look. So when we go into a calorie deficit or hypercaloric dieting, okay, we're eating less than what our body needs to maintain its weight. Sweet. We usually get 2 things drop. Now, one of them is leptin, okay? So leptin is a hormone that pretty much aids with our satiety. So if someone is carrying more body fat, okay, leptin levels will be higher naturally, okay? So that means that the tendency is they're told that they are fuller sooner if they have more body fat, okay? So leptin levels tend to sit higher. There is a thing called leptin resistance, where someone who is obese, their body can actually start to resist leptin, and it can be a reason why they continue to overeat, because they're not getting that leptin tell them that they are full, okay? So the body can actually build up leptin resistance. I thought it's quite a good thing to tell you guys that, because obviously if your goal is to lose fat and you're watching this, having that and knowing that can sometimes help with obviously you knowing that, you know, you are full, you have eaten enough, X, Y, and Z, okay? So you'll also get a thyroid output drop. So your thyroid helps with boosting your metabolism and keeping things going and keeping your metabolic rate, okay? So your metabolism fired up. So your thyroid will drop as well. You'll also then get things like ghrelin, okay? So ghrelin is the opposite to leptin. That will go up, okay? So that means you'll get signals that you're hungry, and you know your body wants you to eat and things like that. And you'll also get cortisol go up. And cortisol is a stress hormone that when too high for long periods of time, what can happen is your body could potentially start to actually lose more muscle than body fat, which isn't what we want. Even though the scale weight might be dropping, you might actually be holding onto fat, subcutaneous fat, okay? And then actually losing muscle mass, which is not cool. That's not what we want. Now, when we are in this hypocaloric diet, after 7 days, science tells us that we usually get around about 50% drop in leptin. Now, this doesn't mean that because you've had this big drop in leptin, you can go and have a refeed or a cheat day or a cheat meal, okay? Because it's relative to your weight. So if you are carrying more weight and carrying in the form of body fat, if you've got higher body fat, it's relative to that. So it doesn't mean, so someone who's got more body fat needs to be in this hypocaloric phase for a longer period of time to then be able to earn the right to be able to have a refeed. Whereas someone who is leaner, okay, because that 50% drop is technically it's bigger for them, that leptin drop is massive for them. For that person, that 50% drop in leptin means that the ghrelin's going to go higher. They're going to get those hunger signals more than someone who's got more body fat. Okay, so if you are leaner and you have had that drop after 7 days, you might need a refeed if your ghrelin's going really high, because your cortisol is going to go really high, and you need to kind of get out of that state. Okay, whereas if you've got more body fat, you can stay in there a little bit longer. Okay, because obviously your leptin stores at the start were higher because you had more body fat compared to someone who's leaner, because their leptin levels at the start before the 7 days were obviously lower because they've got less body fat. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. So where do we go from here? We then look at this. Now this is basically the body fat guide. So I use, there's if you want to do a rough guide, if you go onto Google and look up like American, I think it's like American body fat percentage tester. They use it in the US kind of military, the US Air Force. Basically, for men, I think it's you measure the neck and around the navel. And for the women, I think it's then the neck, the navel, the hips. And they also look at weight and stuff. And it's basically a calculator. And you put all that in the calculator and it gives you a rough guideline on your body fat percentage using those measurements. Okay? So, if you are, as a male, between 15 to 25% body fat, you will get a refeed / cheat meal for every 4 to 6 weeks. If you're 10 to 15% body fat, somewhere in there, every 2 weeks, probably going to need a refeed. Okay? If you're 10% or sub 10%, so under 10% as a male, pretty much once a week, you're going to need a refeed. Again, because you're leaner, okay, you're going to need it sooner, because that leptin level is obviously a lot more, it seems bigger for that person because your leptin levels are obviously less, just generally, okay? So this is why if you're leaner, you get to have that refeed sooner. Now, if you're over 25% body fat as a man, you don't get one. Until you get to 24%, you do not need a refeed, okay? Pretty much it. They're basically good guideline levels, okay? Ladies, because naturally you carry a little bit more body fat due to your hormones, X, Y, and Z, take these numbers, okay, and add about 5 to 7%. So if you are, around 15% for a female, 15% body fat, you're going to need one a week. If you're, say, between 15, 17, all the way up to about 20 to 22%, you're going to need one about every sort of 2 weeks. If you're obviously then like kind of 20 to 22 up to about sort of maybe 27, even kind of pushing up to 30% body fat, maybe a little bit over that, 32, you're going to need one every 4 to 6 weeks. So just add 5 to 10%, okay, to obviously what I've put here, okay? Cool. So obviously for a female, if you're about 32, 33% body fat, that's the kind of area where you need to be before you're allowed one. If you're kind of 35, 40% body fat as a female, you probably don't need one at the moment, okay? So how do we do it? How do we refeed? Simple. This is a simple way to start. Our thyroid and leptin will get massive, massive boosts predominantly from carbs. Okay, so thyroid basically output will be really ramped up if you go and have lots and lots and lots and lots of carbs. Okay, so that's where we want to start, and that's where we're going to focus our refeeds. Okay, which sounds really, really cool. So what you would do, you'd basically have an increase in calories, mainly coming from carbs. What I tell people is start by doubling them. Okay, so if you're on 2,000 calories, 175 grams of protein, 70 grams of fat, and I know it's not going to work out 2,000 calories, but let's say it's 100 80 grams of carbs. On that day, you're going to want 360 grams of carbohydrates. Okay? Protein and fat tends to stay the same. Start there. Okay? Down the line, you can get a little bit more complicated. So if basically you want to get a little bit more scientific, doubling carbs usually and keeping everything the same usually works out around about a 30% increase in calories. Okay, somewhere about 25-30%. So what you could do for some people, they might find that they actually need to drop the fat, okay, and increase the carbs. Okay, protein I would always keep the same. Okay, but to start with, let's not make it complicated. When you are doing a refeed, if you have earned the right to have one, increase your carbs by double the amount. Okay, so if you're on 150 grams of carbs Monday to Saturday, on Sunday you're going to have 300, and keep the protein and fat the same. Okay, that's a nice simple basic way of doing it. Okay, now when we then look at the terms refeed and cheat meal, okay, for me personally, I would be a fan rather of giving someone, especially if they're in these two, so if they're between the 15 to 25 or the 10 to 15% body fat, ideally that person, they would be better off doing a refeed. And how I would get them to do it is I would get them to disperse the carbs over the day. Okay, so if you had 300 grams of carbs to play with on your refeed day, and you had say 5 meals, 60 grams of carbs in each meal, coming from good sources, so sweet potato, white potato, rice, porridge, okay, starchy carbohydrates. If you are kind of sitting around that 10%, okay, yes, there is the potential you might want to go and have a big refeed from something like a pizza, but again, ideally it's not the best thing. The best thing would be to refeed on good single ingredient whole food carbs. Okay, again, things that are going to aid with your digestive system, be good for your body, and not increase a load of inflammation. Okay, because again, if you're increasing inflammation by eating a load of processed food on a refeed day, that could mean that you might counteract the cortisol coming down, because it might actually want to go back up if you've caused loads of inflammation from eating, say, foods that aren't good for your body, or that are stupidly high in like sugar and stuff like that. Okay, so just be a little bit more conscious about what you're going to have if you do it. Okay, so hopefully that has covered quite a good few bits for you on, do you need or do you deserve to have a refeed cheat meal? Okay, if you've started dieting, and literally most people when they start a diet, they aren't 10% body fat. Okay, if you're starting a diet at 15% body fat and you want to just drop a couple of percent to get down to 10%, 11%, yeah, you're going to need one probably after 2 weeks. Okay, but if you're starting with the body fat higher, okay, if you're 35% body fat as a man, you do not need a refeed until you get to 15-20%. Okay, yeah, great. If you get down from 35% as a man down to 22% in 6 weeks, when you get down to 22%, you might need a refeed because your thyroid's slowed down, leptin levels have gone down, your metabolism's starting to slow down, your weight's stopped dropping. Okay, so this can be another sign, guys. If your weight has stopped dropping for 2 to 3 weeks and you've made some calorie adjustments and not much is really going on, okay, then yes, you might need a refeed day, but again, make sure it's coming from those good single ingredient whole food sources. So hopefully you found that interesting. Hopefully that's going to help some of you, and hopefully it's cleared a lot of stuff up that we find in the industry, and hopefully you're going to get some benefit from it. If you've got any questions, as always, just drop a comment in the comment box, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, share it to your friends, and until next time, peace out.